everyone. How are
Hello, hello, hello.
you? How's everyone doing? Oh my gosh, I think I forgot to stream this to my Twitter as well, but that's all right. Um, hope folks are having a great day. Ace, what's been going on with you? How you doing? Tell us the deal.
Yeah, it's been a nice week. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of our reality TV show. We're always excited to join and have good conversations, learn something new, and today we are back at it again. So excited as always.
Yeah, same. And if you haven't tuned into the stream before, it is essentially a live stream where we talk with different SSI experts, that self-sovereign identity, to learn about what they're doing in the space, and so we can level up as well. I am going to go ahead and bring up our guest today, Nate. Heard a lot of awesome things about you from some of our coworkers. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, thanks for joining the stream this afternoon, whether it's morning, night, somewhere in between. Really appreciate you jumping on. I'm Nate, co-founder and CEO of Portabl. We're solving for the fact that the financial system doesn't have its own version of single sign-on. Identity is pretty painful for as consumers. It's really painful for businesses who have to suffer through bad onboarding, bad data retention and security, and sitting on our PII and not being able to let us do things with it or figure out other valuable things they can do with it. So we said, okay, verifiable credentials, decentralized identifiers, some of the Web5 type fundamentals are actually really good at solving this. And so I'm really excited to share what we're building and where we're seeing some of the action here today.
Awesome. That was a great introduction. I want to also, before we dive into too much, Ace, you had something to say. I see.
Oh, please go ahead.
Oh,
No way.
I was gonna say, I just want to quickly do a little icebreaker, just to get to know our audience and to get to know you as well. And the icebreaker, the main question of the day is, which season is the greatest of all time for you?
All time.
Yeah.
That's one way to put it. You know what? I'm gonna have to go with spring. I understand there's a lot of fall lovers out there. I get it. But for me, like I'm literally looking outside right now. There's like 2 trees budding on my street. Spring for me has this like promise of warming up
Yeah.
after the winter. I live in the Northeast. I'm in Philly. We do have real winter here, so it's nice to be over with it. Um, Also selfishly, I'm a cyclist, and so I'd rather like be out in this sort of a weather than like dealing with wet leaves and falling. So that's some additional context there.
I agree. I think it's the same for me because for spring you're moving from winter, so it's no longer as cold and it's warm, but it's not as warm as summer could get. But for fall, it's more like okay, we've had the warm weather, it's chilled, the weather is nice, but now it's gonna get real cold. So now you're worried about the cold. So I think spring will be the same for me as well.
Okay, guys, I hate to disagree with you. I want to like spring. I like the idea of spring because they're like, oh, there's flowers and it's all cute and green. But I never experienced that. At least in Boston, it just feels rainy. I'm like, this sucks. It's like wet and disgusting. I hate all forms of precipitation. What like like I have a deep hatred for snow and rain. I like summer, but I know people are like summer is like so sweaty and gross, but I don't care. Like I like that means I could go to the beach. I don't have to like layer up. I like hate having like so much coats on that I can't move. So that's just me. Let's see what the audience thinks. Tanya said spring and fall are tied for her, and kind of like y'all. I guess a lot of people go for spring and fall because it's like in the middle of like two extremes. Faye in Discord says summer 10 out of 10. Faye, we're friends. Okay. Cool. So we went through all that. I do want to know you introduced yourself. I want to know about like your background and how it led you into the self-sovereign identity space.
Yeah, definitely. So I could go back and then I could go like way back. So I'm actually going to go way back because it's more just interesting context. Makes me human and not a floating head on a stream.
That sounds
So
good.
like So, for context, I was born in Colombia, but I grew up in the States. I'm adopted. So for me, I've always been like really cognizant about like what the heck identity actually means and kind of how it's situational and the slippery thing. So you kind of could say I was predisposed to like want to work in this area in a way. But in terms of like my actual professional career, I'm something of an identity journeyman, or at least that's what I like jokingly refer to myself as. So I got started in the identity space way back in 2011, building out stuff around entity resolution and graph databases for a company that was spun off of Capital IQ. Not an engineer by training by any means, but I'm pretty technical for a product person. And I also did a stint as a sales engineer and solutions architect. So I'm in that kind of like fuzzy middle level of technicality. But that was when I got professionally bit by the identity bug, saying that, the John Smith over here and the John Smith over here are the same or different. How, why, under what scenarios. It teaches you a lot about data integrity, sources, a concept called provenance, of like where did this data come from and how can I trust it? And so for me, that kind of primed me to then kind of stumble into applied identity in financial services. So specifically anti-money laundering and know your customer, or AML and KYC for short. And so that was 2014. And I just got bit by the bug and there was no going back at that point. So I worked for a bunch of startups for the next bunch of years that focused in on different pieces of the identity puzzle in finance, whether it's automating the like AML and SAR, or suspicious activity report process, from kind of a data management point of view, all the way up through building automated KYC and AML platforms for emerging markets, which was the last job I had before deciding to take the leap and start something of my own. That's the background. I was kind of always in this space. And after seeing the very many ways that both KYC for consumers and KYB, or know your business for like B2B type stuff, is still really broken at like a low level around data management, data use, access, and sharing. I was like, okay, everyone loves single sign-on, everyone loves social logins. Why on earth don't we have something like this for consumer finance when places like India or Brazil or the EU are like light years ahead in terms of permission data sharing, open banking, and more enlightened approaches to like national ID systems that accomplish some of this in kind of a ubiquitous way. Meanwhile, the US is just kind of bumbling along with 40,000 different solutions to the same problem, all of which are kind of to very insufficient. So it was 2020. I was like, all right, I got my job. We're actually getting ready to be acquired after we raised our Series A in 2018. You know what? I'm gonna do this myself. We're gonna go for it. And so we did. And so I got this idea kind of rolled up in 2020, incubated it in grad school, popped out of grad school in 2022 with a co-founder and the beginnings of a team and some money, in a round led by the fine folks at Harlem Capital. And so we're coming up on our second birthday, in fact, almost to the day. And it's been an absolute wild ride figuring out what kinds of identity problems we want to tackle versus what kinds of identity problems we don't want to tackle as the Portabl team. Still very much in our early phases. There's a lot there, both in terms of like my background, how I kind of connected these dots in a weird, funky path, but I'll definitely pause there. Would love to know if you have any questions, or folks watching have any questions, before launching into a little bit more specifics around like what Portabl does, what the heck is open banking, how do we get the two things to agree, so on and so forth.
Yeah, also awesome story. I'm always what's it called? Conflicted if I should interrupt in the middle and just have a conversation, because it's such an interesting story, and it's also very nice to see how everything connects to you. I think this might be a bit premature, but before we go into like what Portabl is, I wanted to also just add like a glimpse into your perception on choosing what problems to tackle. Because I mean, you've identified the problems, you have a solution in mind before you even start building out Portabl. So if we have like just a quick glimpse into these are the identity problems that you saw recognized, and maybe a process for you to identify this is what we want to solve, And this is probably something that we can get back to before we even get into Portabl itself.
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this a lot lately. We're going to be doing some other kind of storytelling related stuff later this quarter. And at the time we started getting this thing going, which was basically 2021 into 2022, I think we can all agree that that was a really wild era for everything.
Yeah.
Pandemic, low interest rates, era of free money, all crypto everywhere is going to the moon at all times. So it was like really, really nuts. And I think that was really difficult for us actually, because we were really early to this idea of reusability in the financial services sector. And we had to be like, okay, what's the noise and what's the signal? And it means we ended up throwing out a lot on our path between like ideating and building preliminary technology and then going out and raising money in 2022. And these might sound like spicy takes to some folks out there, but it gives context to why we're specifically going after open banking and the kind of everywhere experience of like, everyday, fiat dollar-based, digital banking type stuff. So we threw out a lot. For one, we decided not to go mobile first, even though about 64 to 66% of banking is done on mobile devices. We said, nah, people hate downloading stuff. We can't put that on people. There's other ways around this problem. Make it just work without worrying about like App Store approval, storage on your phone, like that sort of stuff. The second thing, which, at me all you want, folks in cyberspace, we actually did not want to go crypto first. It was an era where it was just like peak chaos. And there's some really, really strong opinions about anonymity, pseudonymity, and identity. And we're like, okay, this dust has to settle. Let it settle. And so we thought about some other things closer to the more traditional realm. Great. Like, are there things that allow us to bridge Web 2 to Web 3? And the answer to that was like half yes. And we're seeing it come back around again in a different flavor around needing to prove stuff on chain or prove stuff to on off ramps, which becomes really important. At the time, we're like, let the dust settle. Also, with kind of throwing out consumer mobile via app, we also decided to park self-custody, which I know is like a really heretical thing to say in a lot of decentralized communities. But from the surveys we did, both with consumers and with financial infrastructure players, the current state of self-custody at the time when we were making these decisions in 21 and 2022, there was not enough standardized forms of account recovery, redress, and like a million questions in the fraud realm. So we said, okay, if we do this in a custodial model, we at least can provide kind of a network-based backstop to the businesses building on us and the people who want to use us to reshare identity. So we said, okay, custodial model, fine. Let's let it ride for a while. And then I think the final thing, which is a little bit more philosophical, is that 2022 was like super peak self sovereignty. Like people were like real into like leaning really into the notion of like you own your data, it ain't anyone else's, like stick it to the man kind of stuff. And we were like, all right, whether we like it or not, we still have a regulated financial system that has a lot of constraints. How do we solve for this problem without being like stick it to the man first in a way? So how do we think about these things in architecture, in positioning that make entities like the CFPB want to actually work with us and be interested in the technology that we're building, rather than them come away with a perception of like, oh, we're building some like shadow system because we can, which is not what we ever wanted to do anyway. But there was a lot of stuff we had to like throw away, put aside, put on the back burner, sit and wait about, and just say, what are the core fundamentals of cryptography that allow us to do decentralization in a way that is not about like being a shadow system or being like sovereign in the like, get your musket sort of way, but instead, what does it mean to not have a central authority about who you are and what things about you are true? How do we use cryptography to our advantage to say that, hey, Chase can assert some things about me. My Robinhood account can assert some things about me. My other membership here can assert some things about me. I've got control and visibility over where that data is being shared and used and how. And then I can use some or all of it or none of it or proofs of it at that next thing that I need to sign up for or sign into. When you boil it down to that, then the talks around how to make this work for like the way the average person on the street is doing their finances becomes much easier to message, to share, to sell, to convey, and to raise money for. And so that was the whole like mental gymnastics that we had to do as we started raising money and say, okay, what are the bets are we going to place? And then what are the things we're going to watch and keep an eye on, but are not going to be our day zero things to solve? And so now our day zero thing to solve is, hey, how can I claim a credential from my Chase account and go like open a credit card if you see the portable social login button? That's our day zero problem. Everything else, very flexible and very, strongly believed, loosely held about implementation, methodologies, stuff like that. But like, okay, here's the core problem. Here's the core space we're addressing. And it's a space of 247 million people in the US. So we said, okay, that sounds like a good place to start. Let's go for it.
Sounds great.
I love that. I don't have a follow-up question to your intro and to that, but I just have, I guess, a comment. Like, I love how you basically have this origin story of like growing up adopted and having to like question your identity, or think, not necessarily question, but think about who are you and what your identity means and how it's led you into this space. Even Tanya made a comment in Discord saying such an interesting way to connect identity in a personal level early on. And also in your description of like how you thought about the company, I see a lot of synergies between your company and TBD, where we're thinking about like, hey, like I think you said something like bringing Web 2 and Web 3 together. That's very similar. And thinking about like, hey, we don't necessarily just want to like I think you said bring your musket type of thing. we don't want to think of decentralization in that sense, but that same idea of using cryptography to prove who you are. And I think that's why I really like these live streams as well, is because I get to talk to people and I get to show other people that aren't in this space what the real goal is. Because I think when I joined this space, a lot of people were like, that's weird, I never really pinned you for like a get your muskets type of person, like they're out to get us. But I'm like, no, I think this is like a really interesting space where, like you said, different countries are light years ahead of us in identity and all of that, and we have to catch up, right? I think there's room for us to catch up. And the last comment I had, I thought it was interesting that the decision y'all made to not go mobile first. At first I was like, whoa, that's crazy. But I was like, you're right. Like, people don't want to download anything. So I love that.
Yeah, I think for me, it was really important to also outline your day zero like priorities. But you made a comment that I would like you to answer like maybe through your demo at the end. You don't have to answer it right now, but it's about the vision of eventually making it easy for the everyday person, everyday user out on the street to be able to use these things as seamlessly as possible. So my question, which you could answer after your demo, for example, would be more like the distance that needs to be covered from your day zero where you are right now to that point where anybody on the street, for example, that has access to this can actually sign in with Portabl or just be able to have this experience basically.
I wrote that one down. So, go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
It's a great question, and I want to come back to it post demo.
Yeah.
Because I want to talk a little bit more about it's like conceptually like really outer space to a lot of people. But with respect to like getting banks and financial institutions or like infrastructure to work with us, there's a lot of heavy lifting done by the standards, verifiable credentials,
Yeah.
PIDs, Open Identity Connect or OIDC, like things that people are already cool with in smaller capacities end up becoming these very interesting things when you put them on top of each other. And so for me, like, because the standards are, well, they're standards, we have really good fundamentals to getting very, close to our day, solving our day zero problem basically now. Though I'll caveat that by saying there's a whole universe of support functionality and other things that need to get wrapped around it to make it really super ready for prime time. But we'll get to that post demo.
Yeah. I think we might as well just ask you now, like, what is Portabl? I think we're at that point. So what is Portabl?
Yeah. So I'll talk about what Portabl is, but first I want to give some context and explain what the heck open banking is.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the necessary backdrop for like, why are we doing things the way we're doing them? I already explained why we threw out a bunch of stuff, but I actually want to explain and give context to our affirmative decisions. So, first up, open banking is a global thing, but specifically for the US, because the US is a little funky about it, it's sets of procedures and standards and systems that allow consistent third-party access to financial data through APIs. Like that's the real like high-level drop dead simple explanation. What it means for us currently though is that you can view your money or your accounts in downstream applications after doing a permissioned interaction that says, yeah, Y app can read X bank's information. So like we've all seen like Plaid login screens, Teller, Yodlee login screens, stuff like that, where you kind of federate your access, allow a bank to like hook up with an app, and then magically you can see, okay, what's my balance, my debts, my bills, my blah blah, EFM type stuff. Like that is the killer use case for like open banking aggregation and connectivity. Fun fact, actually Plaid 1,000 years ago, Zach and co set out to build a personal financial management app. And they said, wait, connecting to these banks is actually awful. Let's go solve the connection part instead. And they were right in doing so. And it's so impactful now because personal financial management and anything that sits downstream of a bank, whether it's a neobank like a Chime or a Stash, whether it's something like a Robinhood or a Coinbase, and the million of other things that sit downstream of your bank, all rely on open banking connectivity to do that stuff. What are your accounts? Read, write, move money. And it's more impactful than ever, especially now that we have this rise of real-time and non-card payments as well. So really putting ACH to work and now putting real-time payment and FedNow to work. So you don't have to wait for like 3 days to send someone an ACH. So that's kind of the background on open banking. The funky thing about open banking, which is now sometimes called open finance, totally a step in the right direction, but it's just a step. And ID kind of sort of got left behind in terms of that financial connectivity. So what's Portabl? Portabl solving the gap in open banking because you can't take your identity with you to other pieces of your financial life. We live in a set of regulations and technology where every business and every person is stuck verifying themselves to a certain assurance level from scratch every time. You want to go sign up to something, or heck, even if you want to like move from like a free to a premium subscription inside something, Coinbase is a good example. If you go to Coinbase Pro, I think you get KYC'd or stepped up. Like it's frustrating for people. It's a cost center for businesses. Everyone is kind of left a little PO'd and the data is left vulnerable for a million different reasons. So in the simplest terms, Portabl exists to solve for single sign-on for fintech, and it rests firmly on the innovations in decentralized ID, aka reusable ID, aka SSI. And that's what our core is built on. But I think is, SSI alone doesn't solve the problem because the financial system is too complicated. So what makes us pretty unique, and the demo will give you glimpses of some of this, is that we combine traditional KYC, non-document KYC, anti-fraud tooling, onboarding, optimization, and ecosystem tools that allow people who want simpler identity experiences to finally align incentives with the businesses who want better onboarding, who want safer conversion, and want to build new identity experiences or even like monetizable identity experiences with simpler user interactions and better user permissions. So that's kind of where we sit. We said, okay, let's build single sign-on up from scratch again with different fundamentals, allow people to do the thing, some of the examples that I mentioned. Hey, I'm going to use my Chase credential, go join something else. I'm going to use X and Y credentials, prove my age for this really lightweight thing. I need to go prove somewhere else. That's why we exist. Those are the problems we're solving. Some of it's being solved elsewhere in the world already through non-decentralized means. So Aadhaar in India is a national digital identity scheme. Bank ID in the Nordics is a federated identity scheme that uses your bank verified data through an OIDC connection that allows you to go prove stuff elsewhere. The US is big and messy and complicated. And so, we're taking the bet that decentralized technology is really the right way to solve this for privacy reasons, for trust reasons, for regulatory reasons. And as counterintuitive as it sounds, for simplicity reasons, because the kind of current state of API spaghetti is not going to get us there.
That's awesome. It sounds really, really like I've read what I saw on the website, but like hearing you explain it like adds like an extra like dimension. I would love to. Are you ready to show the demo? I really want to see like how it looks visually.
Yeah, I can do some quick walkthroughs.
Okay.
Also, for anyone out there too, happy to take feedback about the website. We're actually currently rebuilding it right now, and we'll be pushing the website with like a solution section and like a verification section and a
Ooh.
credentials section pretty soon. So the website's going to be very different in like 2 weeks time, but certainly happy to take more feedback. So this is going to be a demo in 2 parts. I pre-recorded a Loom video just to step you through some like quick dummy onboardings that I'd set up. And then I will dive live into kind of a representative consumer experience. We call it the passport instead of the wallet, and the developer or business side controls. So this is a recording. I set up 2 kind of shell environments on my computer. One is called Bob Banking and one will be called Bank Trust, just kind of both dummy apps. And I'm using the standard portable social connector here. So this is going to kind of start from scratch. I have a couple things I've like pre-canned in my account. But as we step through, the first thing you'll notice is I'm using Portabl to connect to Bob Banking. There's a couple ways we can do it. Here is like hosted redirect. We can also do it through a widget or just straight API. For the very technical out there, the straight API approach uses just the DIDCOM protocol. Widget and redirect uses OID for VP. And here I already have my stub account. I did that off screen. And so what I can do is I can start the data sharing process and authentication process with just a passkey. So here, it's because it's desktop, it happens off screen through the browser. It authenticates, and I'm in. So this is one thing that's actually really important about getting verifiable credentials to work in a highly regulated system where institutions are super picky and super finicky about data freshness, source provenance, et cetera. Here, what we can do is it's called differential onboarding. So I might have some claims in my passport already. This is like my personal data store, if you will. For reasons, Bob Banking says, hey, these are either like not fresh enough, or I need you to reassert them, or hey, they're signed by something that's not in the network that I'm looking for. Can you reconfirm within this process? So this is really relevant to financial services providers because sometimes they will want to recollect stuff from scratch or kind of stack a credential in something fresh. So here I just kind of whipped through my process and staging. Now note, here's the important thing. It's only asking for my name, social, and phone. not a bunch of everything else, but you'll see why we do this in just a second. I'm going to go through this process. I'm going to use my driver's license. We have embedded identity verification for 196 countries across passports, ID docs, national IDs. I'm going to just blast through that and submit it. So on and so forth. Great, verified. Adding my phone. This is also a failover auth method. Verifying, it's binding in the background. Social, obviously not putting my real social on here.
I was gonna say, I was like, don't
Yeah,
too much.
Yeah, that's definitely not a real social security number. That's been verified. That's been verified within Portabl. Here's the cool thing. So that all happens within Portabl. It doesn't go outside of Portabl before I try to go join Bob Banking. Once that's confirmed, because Portabl does internal checks into itself, essentially, like, is this not fraudulent? Does the person match the doc? Is someone trying to inject an image? Like all sorts of like fraud stuff is happening in that redirect. If it clears, the only things that pop out is a verifiable presentation that data minimizes and only asks you to give consent over sharing what was explicitly asked. So you'll note I just went through like document IDV, but the only claims I'm presenting are name sourced from a document, social from a sub-process, and my verified phone number from an OTP. That's it. Everything else I retain, and it sits in my portable passport.
Cool.
So I can go ahead and confirm. And so that's selective disclosure happening in the background. That used for the real hardcore folks at home, that's using BPS Plus with selective disclosure.
Yeah.
I'll confirm that.
Good for our audience.
And then it's hooked up to like a dummy auth server I have on Bob Banking. You can use our auth or you can use your own native auth. We're pretty agnostic. So great, I'm in Bob Banking, rad. I wish my, available credit actually looked like that in real life. Cool, so here's the dummy app. I've set this up in a way where I just want to be able to demonstrate what it's like to do an internal step up. So this is something that we've picked up from how KYC processes and procedures are done like present day. Sometimes you need to onboard someone with X and Y. Sometimes you need to progressively onboard them, which means let them in the door with X and Y. But if they need to access specific features, go verify Z. And so we've simulated that here. I've shared one type of credential, great. I'm gonna go reshare data again for some sort of internal step up. In real life, this could be months apart, but in here it's about 10 seconds apart for the sake of demo. And you'll see I just get to reuse stuff. It's great. I don't have to recollect. It's credentialized. Again, just pass through and share through presentation exchange. And it clears. Well, I'll take a second to clear. And then the last part of this demo here is great. Now I'm like fully vetted inside Bob Banking. Bob Banking is giving me a credential offer. Great. There's a bunch of different ways you can do credential offers in Portabl. You can issue directly in a process. You can do a kind of claim-based process with our widget or embed the API. You can also send an out-of-band offer as well. So onboard someone straight away with our tools or without. And if you say, hey, use Portabl to remember this data later, that's all you need to do for your like incumbent systems. And it can shoot a secure text or shoot a secure email to your verified applicant saying, hey, we've issued you a credential for XYZ app. We've partnered with Portabl. We want you to use this data elsewhere. So it's really, really flexible and like quite atomic in terms of both the verification processes and then any issuance processes coming out the other end. So great, I claimed my identity. I'm going to speed ahead a little bit. I'm going to go back into my own passport. And you can see that, whoops, we're on 1.2x. Here's all the data I verified when I was setting up the verification process through the redirect loop. Name, birth date, driver's license, social, like all that jazz. Some dummy data also, because this is a UAT environment. Great, that's nice to know. But what did I share with Bob Bank? I need I need real honest visibility in terms of all the data that's mine. What is the subset that I shared with Bob Bank and
Yeah.
permissioned to go on board? And there we have it. I just did name, social, phone, and I'm on testnet. So I can see that, okay, this was signed with keys both way. Here's my did for the specific process. We're on
Ah,
testnet, so we're using short dids. We use long dids in a few other places as well. Um, I'm not the best person to explain where we use short and long and under what circumstances.
that's all right.
So, if anyone's curious, check out our docs. We'll be adding a lot more to docs in Q2. So that's that. So that's kind of the like very, very abbreviated experience of, okay, what is it like to do differential onboarding, fill in some gaps, share it, be able to reshare it for a step up, and then go back to my wallet or my passport and see what is the totality of my data that I verified about myself. So all of my claims, and then the specific claims I permissioned to Bob Bank, and Bob Bank signed and gave back to me as a Bob banking credential. So that's kind of the closed loop scenario. The last part of the show here is great. I want to use my Bob Bank data and any of my other claims to go join something else. I want to join Bank Trust to take out a loan. I want to tell them as simply as possible that this is me. No, I don't want to do your crappy KYC process all over again. I would like to go through the fast lane, please. I'm going to go to Bank Trust. I'm going to hit my pass key, which starts preliminary authentication. Boop. There we go.
That's cool.
And
It was like login with Google type of thing, but it's like
exactly,
login with Portabl.
yeah, this is set up by default to use OID for VP or Open Identity for verifiable presentations, which is like a huge mouthful out of the WC3, but it works. And so you can see I have stuff, this I've cross-validated. So in the way back end, my name is signed by Portabl. My name is signed by Bob Banking. My birthday just signed by Portabl. Driver's license just signed by Portabl. Social signed by Portabl and Bob Banking. And then the only things I'm missing are proof of nationality and passport number, which I can knock out in a single document. So this is the real power of like verifiable credentials applied to this concept of step up or differential onboarding. It allows users to see exactly what they need to share in a single shot instead of having like confusing workflows and step throughs. And next thing you know, you've gone through 13 screens and 40 clicks. So I would kind of go through the same loop here to like grab my passport and everything else is ready to go. It's presented in a single shot and I can go do what I want to do inside Bank Trust. Switching tabs, again, this is what it kind of looks like live. I can view my data. I can view my connected accounts. All your connected accounts will show up here. There's an interpretation of this I like sharing, even though it's on the spicy side, and that this is a much, much better of what Plaid Portal is capable of doing. Like if you logged into Plaid Portal today, you can kind of see like where data is coming from Chase and like going to Robinhood, and it's kind of pretty flat. Here, it's a little bit different. You can see where things are coming and going. You can add new data to your account, and you can also push data from Portabl to one or many connected accounts at the same time. So I think in keeping with the spirit of Web 3 or Web 5 or Web 2.5, depending on your religion, our approach to this moves your personal data management in open banking from kind of read only to read, write, known, which is like the core thesis that I think we can all agree on for our most sensitive data. As for how you set up something like this, we've got the Portabl developer tools. We call this the console. So you've got a lot of settings, access to your API keys, your underlying identifiers, so your DIDs, key types, things like that let you set up your tenant and that you can deploy on a project-specific basis. Webhooks, organization members are all kind of administrative functions. The two things I want to call out specifically at this level of the hierarchy is this notion of trusted issuers. So we built this in response to some other types of infrastructure players wanting to build reusability, but like only in their network. So if I'm a traditional KYC provider and I want to say, hey, I want people to be able to remember me themselves, but only like wherever I have my own customers as a KYC company, I will go in and like allow our own customers to add and drop trusted issuers or trusted verifiers. We need to tweak this inside my own ecosystem. And so
Yeah.
the palatability of like a closed loop reusability is much higher than just like a kind of a free for all thing, which is what it would be by default.
Awesome.
The second thing I realize I just want to be mindful of time
No worries.
is it's template based. So there's a lot you can do programmatically via APIs in terms of both verification, issuance, schema management, stuff like that. But we said, hey, how easy can we make this? If someone wants to create a specific verification template, we have an underlying schema. We can just allow people to like add the data and claims that they need, and then select the underlying allowed sources that they want to get this data from. There's some other settings in verification around, say, don't accept this credential or kick off, dynamic fill if the credential's older than 90 days, or say if someone's from, Iran or something, or like a sanctioned country, don't allow this specific credential, stuff like that. And then we have some additional like watch list screening stuff. This is like particular for verification, where if you have a high assurance level and you're trying to satisfy your AML obligations, hey, verify a bunch of PII because you need to do that anyway, and then turn this on. And then that runs it silently to see if anyone is a PEP, a sanctioned entity on some sort of watch list, and then keeps it dynamically updated once users are in your system. And when I say users are in your system, it's at the project level. So this is at the tenant level, and this is at the project level. Here's the project that I was using that lives underneath Bob Banking. Organizational IDs, administrative functions, things like that. Here's my users. There's some old test versions of me in here. So great. I verified myself as Liz Lemon for any 30 Rock aficionados out there. There's the data that was currently verified. So it's stateful, user overview. I issued a credential to Liz Lemon, but it was just name and phone. And then I have detailed logs. So this will give you kind of the flat JSON output. We'll be expanding this to show the full W3C compliant credential bodies. We took it out for now because it's like actually quite overwhelming to have the JWTs and the proof and everything else in there. It's almost indecipherable. So we said, okay, let's make this simpler for people for now. Issuance can use a different data profile from what you're verifying. You can issue up to the amount you're verifying. We're going to be changing this in Q2 in response to some other product feedback we have around, hey, I have my own information in here anyway that I want to mobilize into credentials. Can I package up stuff I verify and stuff I have into a composite credential for my users? So like, you know what, we can do that. Let's broaden the scope. And then just some auth settings. So if you want to use our stub authorization, that's fine. Otherwise, roll your own. Yeah, so it's very minimal. A lot is done programmatically. We want this to be largely API first. But that's where we are right now. We get a lot of feedback all the time. We've got a lot of stuff on the roadmap at the API level, at the protocol level, at the UX level. That keeps us busy. We're only a team of 6, but we've made a pretty big impact. I can't talk a lot about the businesses we're teaming up with yet, but I can say we just finished our residency in the MasterCard Start Path program, and we do have stuff on deck with MasterCard, which is super, super exciting. And I think net, I can say we're working with businesses where the number of like identities involved range from like the 10,000s up through the like ones of millions per customer.
That sounds exciting.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask something very similar to that, but you can just answer whichever part you're able to, because I wanted to take you back a bit to like the trust aspect. And we had a question from someone on Discord, like, from Faye, have you worked with any notable banks thus far? But I think I just had a bit. So my question was going to be more like, in terms of trust, because I mean, I just went through some of this, verification ID stuff today with some apps, and it's frustrating. And I like the entire idea of not having to do this over and over again. But it also means that these businesses or banks or whatever the case is also trust you as an entity to be able to verify stuff like this for you to be able to work with them. So I was gonna ask, in terms of trust, how does that work for you as a business, as a product to want to onboard some of these organizations? And just asking that question took me straight to the next question, which is like, if I understand correctly, a user authenticates with Portabl via passkey, and Portabl stores users' design credentials on your server, because I think that also boils into the trust part, right? So how is this handled, and how is this trust communicated in general to the organizations?
Yeah, this is an awesome question. So I'll talk about the quote unquote small use case first, about how do we keep our users safe? How do we keep businesses safe? And what does that mean in terms of like moving data around or allowing people to move data around, because we're not touching it, strictly speaking. And then I'll talk about like what standards and security things do we have to contemplate for this to work. So first, in the narrow case, one thing that tends to get like brushed under the carpet with this stuff is that it's not just like passkeys for auth. We have things like silent auth and SMS fallback, but it sounds a little strange, but we actually have redundant authentication, and there's a reason for it. So if I'm using my Portabl account to like go join something, it's a little bit different from just like getting in and out of my Portabl account, which is multi-factor by default. Once you set it up, you can prefer passkeys. But if I'm using, if there's like construction on my street or something, that's Philadelphia for you.
Hear it.
No worries.
All right, even better. So if I'm using my Portabl account to go join something, here's kind of like a rough sequence diagram of like what authentication looks like. So I go to, let's say XYZ app, but there's a lot of apps with XYZ. So I go to XYZ app, join with Portabl. Depending on whether the implementation is OIDC based or API based, I'll still have to authenticate into Portabl. So that's the passkey part. That secures the session. That's different from securing the actual information transfer. And this is where if you're drawing a sequence diagram here, this is where it gets interesting. Because after FIDO auth, which is session, to say, I'm at blah, blah, blah app, the next thing that happens is DIDCOM. So I have a DID, the business has a DID. They're the unique identifiers. We use DID ION for the folks at home, which is based on a side tree protocol, L2 on Bitcoin. But DIDCOM happens. And DIDCOM is really magical because unlike TLS, it enforces two-way authentication. The blah, blah, blah app has to cryptographically prove that they're blah, blah, blah app to me. I have to do the same to them before anything else happens. So like this could be a secure session, or like this could be a business impersonating blah, blah, blah app. Now, granted, the passkey will also fail for that. But let's say like I did an SMS or no TP that got intercepted, and now I'm trying to do DIDCOM with a fraudulent business. DIDCOM will fail because it's not the DID that real blah, blah, blah company is assigned. So that's the second layer of authentication, and it's reciprocal. So that's what I mean by saying we have like session auth, which uses FIDO. We have information exchange authentication at the DID layer. And only when those two things are successful, we can say, okay, great. Now blah, blah, blah app can issue a presentation request, which asks, it's tenant to tenant. So blah, blah, blah app will send the request saying, hey, applicant, I'm requesting A, B, C, D, E, F, G claims based on the schema that I'm using in the Portabl network. Me as a user, everything happens silently, will tell blah, blah, blah app whether or not I have values that fit their requirements around like source, signers, freshness, etc., without revealing the actual underlying strings. It just says, yeah, I've got this stuff for you. That's the first part of presentation exchange. The second part of presentation exchange is sort of the thing that you saw in the demo, like, here's a list of data points, here's the stuff you've got, here's the stuff you don't have. The demo showed stuff very explicitly. So like real claims material, a name and address, stuff like that. Depending on the configuration of the presentation definition and the claim structure, you can ask for like straight up information. You can also ask for something we call derivative proofs. This is kind of our like lightweight way of solving for ZK without having to do all ZK. It's like proof of over 18, proof of over 21, proof of over 25, like resident of state, kind of these binary things that we create ourselves after we have successful parent processes complete. But all of that's available to the business to configure however they want. And then the way we show it in that screen will be like, hey, you're sharing address, you're sharing name, which is stuff that you've seen. For a different case, you may see proof of being over 18, source, driver's license, stuff like that.
Awesome.
I submit that, then the business says, does this fit with my configuration in Portabl? And then the last thing from like a compliance standpoint is we have open-ended webhooks that listen. The reason why we do this is that there are times where the business consuming a user through Portabl needs to take a piece of information and go hit an external database. It could be like LexisNexis, it could be the social credit score, it could be something we don't have. But if we're plugged into like their Alloy deployment and we're just like a piece of the puzzle, we just need to have our webhooks listen for the business to render a decision, a yes, a no, or a maybe, something like that. And then the process completes. So you can use Portabl in a close-ended way, like the demo. But very often we found Portabl is really good for solving the first like 95% of a user acquisition problem. But the business still needs to make the final decision about the totality of the data, because that's their fiduciary obligation. They need to make a risk-based decision and have a record of it before, terminating the process or completing the process successfully, hitting authorization and like writing the user to their user's table or whatever they want to do with it. Awesome. So that's kind of how the whole, I just realized I walked the audience through a whole sequence diagram. I hope that wasn't too much.
Yeah.
No. It's only, so I do want to I think it's been really informative, especially demo. I think it was good for people to see like how is selective disclosure used. But I know we only have like 6 minutes left. I think we're probably going to go over time, and I don't want to go over too much time. I want to continue to make sure it's a conversation with the audience. I know one of the questions, and I think you said you couldn't really reveal which financial institutions you were working with. So I have a follow-up to it, and we can keep it like concise in a way, right? So Faye was asking what notable banks you've worked with, and instead, since you said you can't reveal it and you can say you're part of the MasterCard program, how do you get banks to agree to integrating with something like this? I think banks and financial institutions are usually slow to move. So like, what's the short version of the strategy?
Yeah, so the common denominator between MasterCard and one decently large bank that came to us directly is not actually about user onboarding, because for user onboarding to really work, you need to either prime the network and get people in the network, one, or two, have a need to use us for great onboarding because you have a source of people coming from somewhere else. The common denominator for MasterCard and a couple of other like larger cases we have is not about like the verification or the KYC wars. It's how do we get in on the issuing wars? And that's the thing. Like, how do we issue credentials to allow our users to get new superpowers in our own network or with our partners? And that's the important thing. Because if I can then take some sort of MasterCard credential from a specific program and go do something more simply and securely at a merchant, a partner, something else, that's pretty magical. And that's a big unlock for MasterCard itself, a potential merchant who may want to use like ACH that's bound to an identity, stuff like that. So the magic we're seeing is coming from issuance and building these identity networks. Gotcha. And it's great for us from like a strategic perspective because it allows us to avoid the like KYC onboarding knife fight a little bit, because that space is really, really crowded.
Yep, that's true. So you can stand out a little bit more. Maybe one of the last questions I'll ask, and I'll let Ace do comments too. Is like, just do you have any predictions for the future of reusable identity in finance? And keep it to like maybe like bullet points. Like, I think this will happen, that will happen.
Ooh, I think it's gonna. So I guess so. All right, let me think about how I want to like order my hot takes here. I think one, MDLs are here to stay, but they're going to take forever and a day to become normalized. That's one. Two,
MDLs is in mobile driver's license, you said?
that's right.
Interesting.
Like,
Nice.
like they're really useful. They're compatible with verifiable credentials, which is even better. I think the issue is we live in a country of 50 states. We're never going to have that's another spicy take. We're never going to have a national ID program. As a result, it's going to fall to private companies or public-private partnerships to build either wallets or walletless experiences that allow these new formats to be more widely used. So that's the first thing. Second spicy take is whether we like it or not, Google and Apple are really well positioned to facilitate other kinds of identity interactions.
Yeah.
Yeah. There will be more antitrust stuff around both Apple and Google and their ownership of the identity ecosystems, which is why you should expect to see more non-mobile first implementations that don't want to give more control to Apple and Google than things like multi-device FIDO keys already do.
100%.
Like Apple and Google are here to stay. You can't beat them, so you kind of just work with them. But I think there will be implementation styles that become less reliant on them as like mobile device operators.
Awesome. If I may add quickly, you did explain this a bit, but I think I missed it, and it was related to this question earlier. I just want to like touch quickly because we're almost out of time. As a confirmation, where is this data stored? Like for once you processed it and all those things, some of it are issued as credentials, but on Portabl's end, where is this data stored?
Yeah, so whether you're a business with your own tenant or multi-tenancy or a consumer, well, if you're a consumer, you have a cloud wallet. It's logically separated and tokenized. It's key bound. Like we can't touch it, we can't poke at it or see it, without your express permission. We do have some sub-processors doing things that abide by GDPR, SOC 2, ISO 27001. So like they're very good to us in terms of data security.
Awesome.
But we really take the security thing quite seriously because we are, at least for now, a custodial solution. And we do try and allow users to kind of make sure they are effectively tethered to their institutions at the credential level. It's a hard one. Like I think this is the best way to solve this for now, subject to change.
Awesome. We have one more question from the audience that asks, are you planning to partner with other companies other than banks, like maybe hotels, social media, government?
Hotels and social media, probably not, but I could see a good argument to doing some government stuff. I think there's already some projects in place outside of the Portabl universe, like California, Ohio, et cetera. Some of it uses MDL, some of it may use verifiable credentials. Again, this goes back to the like push and pull and red tape of the fact we have 50 states. States will have their own implementations of things like MDLs and maybe VCs. And then you have the whole separate funky space of things like login.gov, id.me having kind of monopoly power over access to like tax and government services, stuff like that. So what does change look like for those things at the federal level versus the state? It's a lot. We're watching it. We're having interesting conversations, but there's like lots of technical overhead. So like being FedRAMP certified or state RAMP certified with our like verification sub processes, that would have to happen. And then two, it's just like a lot for a team of 6 to bite off when we can move more nimbly in like a pure play open banking scenario.
That sounds good.
Awesome. I think we'll switch into our like more fun questions. I really appreciate your demo and the fact that you're your 6-person team just made like such a vibrant application. It's very robust. There's a lot like going on in it, and I'm impressed. All right, so first of the questions is, what's your favorite food?
Oh, this is a tough one. I hate this. I actually hate this question. So another fun fact before we get too tight on time, I almost dropped out of college to go to culinary school. Like I really love food. If I could like retire into cooking, I would.
Oh wow.
So picking a favorite food is like a very fraught question for me.
I can see why.
I think at the end of the day, I'm a real sucker for rigatoni vodka. Like
Ooh, me too.
Straight up.
That was a good one. I love it. All right. Other question. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Oh, I'm gonna pull one from my like past kid grew up on Toonami self. If any of you like out there like grew up in the 90s and like watched like Dragon Ball Z on Toonami, then you might know of what is Goku had this power instant transmission. You can basically teleport from place to place. I would do
Yeah.
that. Because like
Yeah.
I live in Philly, I need to go to San Francisco, I need to go to New York. You know,
Yeah.
I want to go other places for like a weekend without going, going on a plane.
Yeah.
That would be my superpower.
I think we need to stop asking this question because teleportation seems to just win it. Everyone wants to.
I need a new question. I think what it is a lot of executives, which we have on like C-suite level that we have on the show, and then developer advocates like us. We travel a lot, so we're like, can we just get from point A to point B?
I know,
like,
right? It's like, just give it to me. Let's go work on a project for that. Let's invent it.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Last but not least, what is your favorite Beyonce song? And Beyonce just came out with an album like last night. Just
I
dropped.
know I haven't listened to that yet.
Okay, yeah.
I gotta come clean. Like Puff It is great. It is a very good song. I don't listen to a lot of Beyonce. I do like Cuff It. One song I've been like what's that? Cuff It, yeah, Cuff It's great. One song I've been binging though, not Beyonce, is Come Down by Anderson .Paak.
Ooh,
When he did it live on his NPR Tiny Desk concert, that was great. Thundercat also has a really good Tiny Desk concert.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for Tiny Desk concerts. They're the best.
They're great.
All right. Thank you so much for joining the stream. I think it was really educational. It's going to be really helpful to a lot of people. Ace and Nate, if you have any like short last words you want to add before we go. And also, I want to say thanks to the audience. Great questions. Yeah. Thanks for your engagement.
Yeah, as always, thank you, everyone. Thanks to the audience. Rizel, Nate, thank you for joining us. This is another amazing episode as well. I apologize for going a bit over time. I think we're having way too much fun, but as always, it's always very educative and just an opportunity for us to learn. And this is what I'm doing. So yeah, thank you so much again for sharing your knowledge and experience with us.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. This was a joy. It was a good high point to my Friday. I hope everyone has a good weekend. Be well, be safe, stay hydrated, water your plants. Do good things for yourself. If you're interested about what we're building, check us out. GetPortabl.com. Thanks very much, everyone.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I'll tune back in next Friday. Bye.
Bye, everyone.